And now a moment from Your History and Health Comes First with Dr. Richard Brown.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Your History and Health Comes First. This is Dr. Richard Brown, and this is my podcast today for March 9th, 2022. It is almost springtime, but it's still pretty cold here in Omaha, Nebraska. This month's observance month is for colorectal cancer. It's also the month for nutrition. It's also the National Women's Month. So I've already talked about nutrition last time. This time, I'm actually going to focus on colorectal cancer. And we'll look at what it is, some screening, and some prevention at the same time. So colorectal cancer is a very serious disease. About 600,000 people die of cancer in general. And a significant portion of that is colorectal cancer, which is preventable. So let's start, though, by talking about colorectal cancer and what it is and what it's all about and the observance. So the information from today's podcast is coming from the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, as well as the American Cancer Society. So the foundation for colorectal cancer started a while back, and it has designated March as a time when you should focus on it. But let's talk about what cancer is, just to go to the basics. Now, cancer, you've heard a lot about. You know it's deadly. You know you don't want it. But what really is cancer? Well, cancer is a group of cells that multiply uncontrollably, and they also divide, and they impact and damage body tissue. So these are a group of cells that continue to multiply uncontrollably, and they damage other tissues in the body, the normal tissues. So what is colorectal cancer? Well, colorectal cancer is the cancer that takes place in your colon. Again, this is where a set of cells begin to develop rapidly. They are multiplying, they're dividing, they're creating damage to the normal cells. You know, every day cells multiply and divide and continue to move and do what it's supposed to do on a daily basis. But then these cancer cells come along out of the clear blue, although maybe not out of the clear blue. There may be some reasons for why it's there, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But they start multiplying rapidly, uncontrollably, and they begin to damage the rest of the tissue in the body. So that's what cancer is, what cancer, colon cancer is. Well, now let's talk about, well, what is the colon? Well, most of you probably know what the colon is. And it's not Colin Powell, as some people have sort of made some jokes about that. But on a serious note, we're not joking here. This is very serious. So the colon is the lower part of the large intestines, and it is at the end of the body's digestive system. So it also is saying that its digestive system means that food that goes into your body goes through the colon, and it ends at the end of the digestive system. And the lower intestine is connected to the rectum, which is where the waste products come out. So colon cancer is the leading cause of cancer-related deaths for both men and women in the United States. So in 22, it is expected that more than 100,000 people will be diagnosed with colon cancer. And of that 100,000 that's diagnosed, about half of them, about 52,000, will die from colon cancer. And this is according to the American Cancer Society. Now, it doesn't have to happen for several different reasons. You have to be aware that the disease exists, and you have to be aware of what you can do to prevent it, and you got to have access to healthcare services. So everyone from 45 years of age up to 75 should be getting screened for colorectal cancer. Now, there's 3 different types of screenings that are available for you to gain access to. So the first type is called a colonoscopy. You've probably heard about that. A colonoscopy is where the physician under anesthesia enters a tube into your rectum, into your intestines, and they have a camera at the end of this tube, and they take pictures throughout your intestines and determine whether they see something called polyps. Now, polyps are growths that are almost like blisters, so to speak, that form in the colon. And if too many of them form, then they can turn into cancer. And so during this colonoscopy, the doctor has the opportunity to snip some of those out and take some samples and see whether it's actually benign or whether it's actually cancer. The second test that you can take is called a sigmoidoscopy. Now, a sigmoidoscopy is a similar procedure. There's a tube that goes through your rectum into the intestines, and they take pictures and they look around, and they may take some biopsies and determine whether you might have cancer as they send the specimens to the lab. The third opportunity and way that you can get screened for colorectal cancer is through something called a stool test. Now, this is where there's a kit that you would obtain usually from your doctor's office, and you would place in this kit on a card a sample of your stool. And then you send that back to the office. You can either take it in, or you can actually send it through the mail. I mean, it's not that much that gets sent, and it's not such that it can't go to the mail. And then it's sent to the laboratory, and then they test it for whether or not there is an indication for cancer. So if you're interested in how to prevent cancer and or understand a little more about cancer-related deaths, you can always go to Healthy People 2030 cancer objectives. You can also go to CDC, which is America's Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which is America's top expert organization for health. We have depended on CDC for many, 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 many years. It is where the top best scientists in the world exist, that are well trained for years and years and years and years. And it is absurd that so many people ignore and disrespect the Center for Disease Control and the directives that come out of that department. So back to the Cancer Foundation. In 1999, the Cancer Foundation got started. It was called the National Colorectal Cancer Foundation, and it started Colorectal Cancer Month. And on November 19th, 1999, it was declared by the US Senate and then followed by the House of Representatives. And the final proclamation was made by the White House back in 99. So it's been around for a while, and we do observe it. And this is the time when you should be focused on colorectal cancers and looking around and determining whether you need to do something or a loved one need to do something. But your health is your wealth, and it is most important. It is the most valuable asset that you have as a human being, is to maintain your health. So the foundation, once it started its awareness, and it continues each year, came up with some slogans or some taglines. And one of them is preventable, the other one is treatable, the other one is beatable. So colorectal cancer is preventable, it's treatable, and it is beatable. So again, if you're 45 years or older, you should check with your doctor and begin to take one of these 3 tests in order to begin to get screened for whether you have colorectal cancer or not. So as I mentioned earlier, cancer is the 2nd leading cause of death in the United States. Lots of people die from cancer. 600,000 a year die from cancer. Death rates are higher for some cancers than other cancers. And there's a lot of disparity associated with who gets cancer and who survives cancer. And as we've talked before, the minority populations sometimes are disproportionately impacted by health diseases in general, and cancer is another one that seems to disproportionately impact minorities. But much of the disparities come from the social determinants of health, which we've talked about before. And the social determinants of health include lots of things like education, your economic status, access to health care, your financial income, where you live, so your neighborhood is a factor. So those things are important in determining whether or not you might get colon cancer or whether you might survive colorectal cancer. Now, there's some interventions that you should know about. And there's some studies that have been done, which I'll share. So to promote evidence-based cancer screenings, such as screenings for lungs, breast, cervical, and colorectal cancer, these things can help, reduce cancer death. Other interventions include HPV vaccine, which you can take. You can not smoke. If you are smoking, you should quit. You should eat healthy foods. And of course, you should always participate in physical activity. I talk about that a lot. I believe in it. It's hard to participate in physical activity as a way of just exercising. And sometimes it's boring. And sometimes you just don't want to do it. But it's the best thing you can do to stay healthy and free of just about all diseases. So there's no sure way to prevent all colorectal cancer, but there are things that you can do to lower your risk for colorectal cancer. And so from time to time, you should make sure that you're paying attention to your health. Now, once you get colorectal cancer, or once it is identified that you got some polyps or some cancerous cells that are accumulating, it might take 10 to 15 years before it actually develops into a cancer. And so regular screenings are very important. So you should go every year and get that screen if you're between the ages of 45 and 75, because you can catch cancers early and it can be treated to where you might not die at all. Now, some risk factors include whether or not you have a family history of colorectal cancer, or whether there's some genetics involved in your family tree that might lend you as a candidate for colorectal cancer. You might be able to lower your chances for colorectal cancer by making sure that you keep your body weight down. We know for sure that overweight people who are obese, they have an increased risk of colorectal cancer. That's both in men and women. And obesity has a tendency to lend itself to other diseases aside from colorectal cancer, such as diabetes, heart disease, liver issues, high blood pressure. So staying at a healthy weight may help you reduce your risk of colorectal cancer. Physical activity, as I mentioned already, is very, very important. The more you keep moving, the more your body does what it's supposed to do. It's a phenomenal organism. The human body is a phenomenal creature. There's no more efficient creature on the face of the earth than the human being, but you have to treat it properly. You have to put the proper food into it. You have to keep moving and exercising, because as you move and exercise, the body cleanses itself of the impurities and bacteria, and the immune system works better. So you can fight off diseases that come along. So it's always good to participate in regular physical activity. Now, I mentioned the fact that the lower part of the intestine, the colon, is part of your digestive tract, which means that diet is a factor here and is very important. So a diet that's high in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and low in red processed meats can help reduce the risk of colorectal cancer. It's not exactly clear how all of this works, but many studies have linked red meat and beef and pork and lamb, processed meats, hot dogs, sausages, lunch meats to an increased risk of colorectal cancer. In recent years, some large studies have shown conflicting evidence that fiber in the diet probably lowers colorectal cancer risk also. And these studies are still underway, and every week you hear about a different study. And so you have to use your own judgment, focus on and know your own body, and do what's smart. There's a lot of inaccuracies and a lot of dumb stuff going on, to be quite honest, these days. A lot of lies being told, a lot of ignorance being proliferated throughout social media and other places. So I encourage you to do your own research, and I mean true research, not just listen to somebody on the internet who doesn't have a high school diploma tell you what to do about your health and your body. But look at the science. Some of it is easy to read. Some of it is understandable. Talk to your physician and public health representatives that are reputable and that you respect. Now, some studies have proven that if you eat whole grains and add that to your diet, then the risk of colorectal cancer seems to go down. And I've been studying this for a long time. My dad was what they used to call a health food nut. Well, he was an enthusiast. He was a health food guru. People all over throughout our family and wherever he worked used to call upon him to talk to them about the ailments that they had. And he most of the time would prescribe or recommend. He was practicing nutrition and medicine, but he's passed away now, so y'all can't get him. But he would write out prescriptions of what people should eat and how they should exercise and what they should do for themselves to make sure they stayed healthy. And so he told me a long time ago about eating meat and red meats and about vegetables and fruits and whole grains. He used to have me drinking goat milk at one time and some other things. Seemed like I remember hippopotamus kneecap pills we used to take. Not too sure about that. But he used to have us focus on our health. Alcohol. We know that alcohol is not good for you. Oh, it makes you feel good for a little while. It gives you a high. But ultimately, it brings you down, and it's brain damaging, and it's damaging to all of your organs if indeed you drink too much alcohol. Several studies have found that higher risk of colorectal cancer increases with alcohol intake. So people who do drink should not drink more than, one glass, short glass, small glass, one shot a day. That's for men. No, for men should be no more than 2, for women should be no more than 1. And not drinking alcohol is the best thing to do. Smoking. Smoking is another one of those things that we do to our pure and sophisticated, perfect body that causes us all kinds of problems, including lung cancer and damage to other parts of your body. And colorectal cancer is one of them. Smoking increases the risk of colorectal cancer. If you do smoke, quit. quit. Some of you have probably never seen an autopsy where you can look at the lungs of a person that smoked and the lungs of a person that did not smoke after they passed away. It is very, very different. The healthy lung is pink, bright pink, red, healthy looking. The smoker is dull and gray and dark. Clearly damage have taken place to the lungs of that person who has smoked. And even the Surgeon General for years now, over, 30, 40, 50 years, tell you that cigarettes are cancerous and you should not smoke them. It's written, but we still smoke them, some of you. Why do that? Don't you want to live longer than maybe your parents or other people who have passed away? Be smart, do the right thing, don't smoke. And if you need some help, there's a hotline. It's 1-800-227-2345. If you want to stop smoking, call 1-800-227-2345. I know it's difficult for some people. I've never had a problem with it, but I understand that it is addictive and it creates some problems for people and it's hard to quit. But do yourself a favor and your family, try to stop. Call that number, get some help. Some other studies have shown that vitamins are important for reducing colorectal cancer, such as calcium and magnesium. There are also some studies that say that folic acid or folate may lower colorectal cancer risk. Some studies have found something different. So again, you got to do your own research and focus on what you need to do for yourself. Vitamin D is important. You can get vitamin D from the sun. That helps reduce colorectal cancer. But of course, the danger of getting skin cancer from too much sun is not good. So some research studies do not recommend that, like they do maybe some vitamin supplements. Now, calcium have been linked with a decrease in colorectal cancer in some studies. Other studies suggest something different, but there's calcium in milk and other foods, and it would be good to, when you hear about these minerals and these vitamins, be good to have a chart to identify, okay, what foods contain these vitamins? What foods contain these minerals? Because it's hard to keep up with. But you know what you like to eat. And sometimes you can change your taste buds to start eating things that you don't like, but you know that it's helping with your health, so you'll go ahead and eat them. So you should have a chart that you can refer to and figure out what you need to be eating for your own individual health and keep focused on that. I believe you can do it. Human beings can conquer and do anything humans can do if they put their minds to it. So many studies have found that people who regularly take aspirin can decrease their chance of colorectal cancer. They also recommend ibuprofen or Motrin or Advil. And many of physicians prescribe that. Now, studies and research keeps changing. Depending on your age, they're recommending not to take the one aspirin a day. But if you have a history such that you have heart disease or colorectal cancers in your family, you might want to go ahead and take. Part of the problem that occurs with taking an aspirin a day is that it sometimes can cause bleeding in some people. And of course, you don't want to have bleeding and stomach irritation and ulcers. That creates a whole nother problem. So you should always check with your family doctor and talk with them about what you should do. Now, there's something called hormone therapy. Hormone replacement therapy for women. You know, women at some point, they need to take estrogen or progesterone after menopause. But they say that sometimes this medication can reduce the risk of developing colorectal cancer. And so you have to be very careful about this and do your own research. Some other studies say that, well, maybe that's not a good idea because estrogen and progesterone may be the cause of some heart disease or some breast cancer or some lung cancer. So you have to be real careful about that. So if you're considering menopausal hormone therapy, be sure to discuss it with your physician, and you can always contact the American Cancer Society. And so that is my story for today on this past podcast for March 9th. I want to encourage you to stay focused. Your health is your wealth. Your history and your health comes first. Thank you. This is Dr. Richard Brown. We're signing off for today.
This has been Your History and Health Comes First with Dr. Richard Brown. And you can leave suggestions at ewcfacts@gmail.com. That's ewcfacts@gmail.com. This has been an EWC Communication production.